that time of year again where the days are getting longer and the temperatures are getting a little bit warmer and we can start growing again. You might have noticed that the spring bulbs are emerging and the perennials are bursting into life again. It's also a really great time to get our cut flower seeds off to a good start so that we can have harvestable stems by summertime. In this video, I'm going to share with you my tips for producing really healthy cut flower seedlings, and I'm going to share the methods that I like to use, the equipment as well as the seed starting mixes that I like to use here on the farm that help to create super seedlings. It can be easy to get seed starting wrong, and there's lots of mistakes you can make that cause poor germination or just not very healthy seedlings that fail to thrive. But follow along on this video and I will show you the way that I've been doing it for the last 9 years here on my farm, which will help you to provide the best start for your plants. Today's video is part 1 of a 7-part series where I will be releasing a daily video letting you know what I'm up to here on the farm at the moment. I'll be doing everything from seed starting, moving and dividing perennials, taking cuttings and planting things out into the farm. I would love it if you could contribute by writing comments as the week progresses and let me know any questions that you might have. I also have left my 7th episode open-ended, so I want you to help me shape what is going to be in that episode. So if you could write down in the comments what you would like me to cover, then in the 7th video I'm going to just be covering all of the topics that you have requested from me. So let's get into the video. First of all, I want to start with equipment. And I find myself coming back to cell trays time and time again. I find this the most reliable way of starting seeds that gives me the most leeway to make sure that the plants are healthy and grow up nice and strong. Generally, I'm using these sized cell trays which have around 100 cells in each, and I can usually use 1 or 2 of those to fill up the beds that I have here on the farm. More recently, I have invested in these injection molded trays which are super tough and durable. I think you could actually drive a car over these and they would survive. And although they are expensive, they are going to last me forever. So I think it's a worthwhile investment if you think you're going to be growing for a long time. The other trays that I use are these thinner plastic trays, and as you can see they're very flexible and a lot of them have tears and rips in them where the compost falls out when I'm moving trays around. So some of them aren't great, but I am still trying to use them until they literally are falling apart and I have to get rid of them. And then what I'll do over time is just replace them with these injection molded trays that I know that are going to last a long time. However, these thinner trays have lasted me a good few years on my farm. I think some of them are even from the very beginning, which was 7 or 8 years ago now. So they have lasted despite the fact that they are not made to last for very long. Occasionally I will also use these shallow trays like so, which if I'm in a rush, I will just fill up with compost quickly and I will sow the seeds on the surface and then cover with vermiculite or however the seed needs to be treated. And these are really good if I'm in a rush and I don't have time to be putting 1 or 2 seeds per cell in a cell tray. And then if I know that I will have the time later, then I can obviously prick them out into cells or into pots once the plants get a little bit bigger. But usually when I've got lots of seeds to sow and also other things to do at the same time, I'm thinking autumn when I'm still harvesting flowers and preparing beds for the season ahead, and seed sowing also needs to be done. Sometimes I will sow into these just because it's quick and easy. I also have a number of these flat, shallow trays around the farm which don't have holes in, and they are for holding water and sitting seed trays into it so that the seed trays can be watered from below rather than from above, and some seeds prefer to be watered that way. And also before I'm planting out, I'll sometimes sit trays into those shallow trays to take up a soil drench or some kind of biostimulant before I'm planting them out into the ground. Something else that I've dabbled with a lot in the past is soil blocking. And I have the Swift Blocker soil blocker here, and although I really love the concept of soil blocking, I think it's a great way to reduce plastic use and I'm all for the healthy root system that it creates. I find it just a little bit tricky and it doesn't really work in my situation, and it's probably because I'm a bit neglectful towards my plants at times. So what I find with the soil blockers is that they dry out quite quickly, and I think that if you are able to provide them with consistent moisture, if we get a really sunny day, sometimes I find that they need watering more than once a day and I can't always be there. to do that. So I'm sticking with cell trays for seed starting at the moment. I'll probably still always play with soil blocking, and hopefully one day I'll find the silver bullet that will teach me how to soil block properly, but for now I'm going to stick with the cell trays. Last year actually I played a little bit with soil balls, and I don't think that I actually have any footage of these or any photograph. But basically I took inspiration from Jesse at No-Till Growers, who pots on some of his vegetable plants into soil balls, and basically you just take some wet compost and form it into a ball with the seedling plant in the middle. And I tried this with tomato plants last year and they did really well. So that's another thing to consider for potting on. There's a larger volume of soil which doesn't dry out as quickly, so I think it's probably a little bit more of a foolproof technique. Another thing I want to mention is these wind strip trays, which is kind of a hybrid between soil blocking and cell trays, because obviously we've got the cell tray material here, we've got the injection molded plastic like we see in the cell trays, but on these wind strip trays there is a lot more air gaps that have been built into the design, which kind of acts like a soil block, and it stops the roots from just winding around the cell. It helps them to be air pruned, a bit like how they would be in a soil blocker. And because of the plastic that is on this tray, it does hold moisture for a little bit longer. However, I do find that especially around the edges, those cells dry out a lot quicker. Direct sowing is another option for getting seeds off to a start. However, I find that it is a little bit more unpredictable and we can't control the environment as well as we can if we are sowing in a greenhouse in cell trays. I also like to be able to control plant spacing, which is really important in my scenario where I'm trying to produce really good quality cut flowers. So I like to start my seedlings off in cell trays and then plant them out at the best possible spacing into the field so that they've got good airflow and also they've got good competition with each other to produce nice tall stems. I use this potting tray for mixing my composts in. It's really good to be working at bench level and not bending down to scoop compost out of a bag, and I can easily mix all of the different ingredients that I want to put in my seed starting mixes in this tray here and then move along on my workbench area to put the soil into my seed trays. One of the other really important tools that I use here on the farm is planning, and I like to plan to make sure that I've got enough flowers that I'm going to need for the season ahead, and I'm not sowing way too much of something or not enough of something. So if you want to know how I plan what I'm going to grow here on my flower farm, then you can check out one of my recent videos where I took you seed shopping with me and took you through the whole process of deciding what to grow, and I'll link that down in the description so you can check it out. Next up, I want to talk about growing medium, and this is one of the most important aspects of seed starting and making sure you've got really healthy plants to produce a good harvest come summertime. Providing a good growing medium along with beneficial biology and biostimulants will help to give a young plant the foundations to become not only productive but pest and disease resistant as well. To start off with, I use this Melcourt Silver Mix or Silver Grow, which is a seed and cutting mix produced by them, and I could stop there and just use this seed compost because it is good quality and you can get success by just using this on its own. However, I like to add lots of beneficial biology and biostimulants to my plants because I think it really helps to get the plants off to the best possible start. So here I have a box full of compost that I have sieved out that I put together from a compost pile last season, and this stuff's really good. I've had a look at it under the microscope and you can kind of just tell by the texture of it that it's good quality. It looks very much like worm castings and it's got lots and lots of goodness in it too. And I mix a little bit of beneficial biology in the form of compost or worm compost, and even if you don't have any of those things, you can buy living composts online. So I add a little bit of those to each of my seed starting mixes, my potting on mixes, and I'm also using them as foliar feeds and soil drenches throughout the season, just to give our plants as much as we can possibly give them. And this beneficial biology will team up with the plant to form a symbiotic relationship which will benefit both the microbes and the plants. The plants produce sugars which they give to the microbes in exchange for nutrients that are recycled by the microbes and brought up to the plant. If I can put the plants in contact with these microbes before they've even gone into the ground, then they are going to continue that relationship once they are in the ground, and hopefully they'll have a really good life together out in the soil, providing for each other and creating a healthy ecosystem. If you want to have a look at whether your seedlings are forming those beneficial relationships with microbes, then you can have a look at the roots. If you pull a plant out of a cell tray or a pot and you notice that there's lots of soil sticking to the roots, then you know that the plant is forming a symbiotic relationship with the microbes in the soil. And these are called soil aggregates. And I get so giddy when I find them on my plants. These soil aggregates help with soil structure, which in turn helps with things like water retention, air spaces in the soil, carbon sequestration and prevention of soil erosion. So all around good benefits for having soil aggregates. So when it comes to seed sowing, I'll mix my preferred seed mix in my potting tray. Usually I'm using Melcott Silvergrow with a mixture of homemade compost or worm compost, and I'm usually using the living compost at around a 20% ratio. Then I'll fill my seed trays, give them a good water and start sowing seeds. I'll follow the instructions on the seed packet to give the seeds what they need for successful germination. If the packet recommends using vermiculite, then I'll top the seed trays with vermiculite to help to hold in some moisture. Once my seedlings have germinated, I will strive to give them a weekly feed with something like liquid seaweed, humic acid or a compost extract, which will help to maintain the beneficial biology and also give them an immunological boost and a plant health boost as well. I find this way of sowing seeds in cell trays with a good biological compost is the most successful way for me to start flowers here in my situation here on my farm. Let me know in the comments what your preferred seed starting method is and why it works for you in your situation. And if you have any struggles too, then let me know about those in the comments and hopefully we can help each other out and become better growers all together. Tomorrow I'm going to be fiddling around with perennials. I've got some that I need to pot on and I've got some that I need to plant out in the field. So join me tomorrow if you want to learn more about perennials, and I'll see you tomorrow and for the rest of the week. Thank you again guys, and I'll see you soon.